Okay. So secure attachment, attachment styles really pertains to that first, 12 to 24 month phase. Parents really start establishing their parenting style about that age and into childhood. Different parents have sort of different approaches to teaching their children what they want, what the parents expect from them, how to act, things like that. Now I'm going to give you the 3 basic parenting styles, and you're probably going to see one or both of your parents described. Most parents are not purely one style. Most parents are some combination, with one style usually predominating. And we'll talk about that in a sec. Okay, so we've got the authoritarian. I underlined the suffix so you get really clearly. It's authoritarian. According to psychologists, this is the too strict or too hard style of parenting. This is the type of parents who impose rules, and when you question the rules, they'll oftentimes say, "Because I said so." They expect their children to obey. If their children don't obey, a lot of times authoritarian parents have their go-to punishment that regardless of what you've done wrong, you get the same consequence. Growing up, my best friend had authoritarian parents who had the spare the rod, spoil the child kind of attitude. And if my friend, who, 5, 6, 7 years old, did something wrong, she every single time would be grounded for the entire weekend. She could not do anything except for go to church that weekend. Couldn't spend the night at my house. I couldn't come over there. She's done. You're not going anywhere, young lady, because I said so. You broke the rules. Same outcome, no matter what she did, right? And even though she was very young, she had the same outcome at 5, 6, 7 years old that she was getting at 12, 13, 14 years old. So it was all the same, and the parents always used that same logic and same sort of lower the boom mentality. Authoritarian parents tend to have a lot of rules about a lot of things. What you can wear, who you can spend your time with, how many hours a day you need to be studying, what your hobbies can be, how much time you should be practicing your hobbies. They have rules about everything, and you're supposed to, as the child, obey those rules and bring them to fruition. Permissive parents are characterized by psychologists as too soft. Permissive parents oftentimes don't have enough rules. Permissive parents submit to their kids' desires. They don't enforce any kinds of limits. They don't enforce any kinds of standards for how their children should behave. The first permissive parent I really have ever known was my Girl Scout co-leader, and she really believed in natural consequences. She really believed that if her daughter's behavior was inappropriate, the world would let her know. That mom didn't need to come in and lower the boom. Other people will let her know that her behavior was out of line. Natural consequences will come. If you stay up too late tonight, you will be tired tomorrow morning, and you're still going to have to go to school, and then you'll be sorry. If any of you know children, they don't usually know that they're tired. They usually just are cranky, right? So sometimes kids don't get the natural consequences that parents are expecting them to get. Authoritarian parents make you take your jacket to school regardless of whether you're cold or not, because they know that you should be cold, and they know that you need your jacket. Permissive parents say, take your jacket if you want to. It's your decision, but you're the one who's going to be cold. That may be why I see so many kids out waiting for the bus in the middle of the winter with no jackets on, right? Their parents are like, well, I guess you'll figure it out. Authoritative parents, again, I underlined the suffix to make it really clear that this is authoritative. Psychologists tend to label this as the just right method. If you're Goldilocks of psychologists, you go authoritarian's too hard, permissive is too soft, authoritative is just right. It's a balance. With authoritative parents, you have rules, limits, and standards, right? And you enforce them. I expect you to do certain things, and there will be consequences if you don't. But authoritative parents also explain the rationale for the rules, the limits, and the standards. They discuss things. They want to hear their kids' perspective. They listen when their kids talk. They don't just say, like an authoritarian parent would, they don't just say to their kids, don't backtalk me. They don't say, you'll understand better when you're older. Things like that. Authoritative parents are respectful of their kids' ideas, are respectful of their children's wishes. They don't cave to them. They hear their kids' perspectives, and they explain why, all the ways in which they're wrong. Just kidding. I can so see the light at the end of the tunnel of parenting, because I've got a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. The 18-year-old's a tough one because, you know, he just graduated high school, and he's 18, and he's still in the household because he's going to community college, and I listen to him in his perspective and go, okay, here are the ways that you're wrong. But I don't tell him because I said so. We have a discussion. And I never veto his viewpoint at all. But I always joke. I always go, I'll listen to what I'll say to him, what do you think? And then he'll say, I don't want to say because you'll just tell me all the ways in which I'm wrong. Okay, no, seriously, I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Then I'll listen. I'll say, I can totally see where you came to that conclusion. I'm laughing because, you know, I always think I don't do that, but now that I'm telling you, yeah, I kind of do that. Yeah. Well, I'm old and he's young. So, but okay. Now, so we have these 3 basic parenting styles. And like I said, each parent has like their predominant strategy and then sort of their fallback. I know for me, I tend to be very authoritative. And in fact, I was worrying that maybe I was too permissive because it seems like, particularly with the 18-year-old, I let him get away with a lot of stuff. And so I'm like, am I a total pushover or what? So I made him take the parental authority questionnaire, which is in our project list. And I came out authoritative. But my second highest score was permissive. And that's how, you know, a lot of us, we have like our predominant approach, and then we have our I'm tired and it's just not worth it approach, or I don't feel good, do whatever you want approach. For me, when I get tired, I go to the I don't care, just do whatever you want approach. For my husband, when he gets tired, he goes authoritarian on him. He's very authoritative normally. But if he's either they've pushed his everlast button or he's tired or not feeling well, that's when you get the, you know what, because I said so. And you will line up and you will salute and you'll do what I say. And I'm over here going, oh, no, it doesn't. They'll figure it out. Just let them do whatever they want. So when you're tired, you definitely see your parents' other side come out. And it's okay that parents don't match either. That's another misnomer, that both parents need to be authoritative all the time or something. The kids know full well who to work. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, you don't want to be screwing over your spouse. Like, as the person who tends to get permissive, when my kids were little, my son would come to me and say, can I have ice cream? And I'd be like, I don't care, go ahead. And then here he'd come eating his ice cream sandwich, and my husband behind him going, I just told him no. I'm like, oh, he didn't tell me that. So I've had to learn, don't just go with my yes, leave me alone, I'm writing a textbook approach. I have to say, what did your father say? And then give my answer after that. And luckily, once I started doing that, we had fewer of these misunderstandings. Can't undermine your spouse's approach, but it's okay that you don't necessarily match. Okay, so what happens when you're parented using the different styles? Well, the authoritarian parent tends to breed children who are more likely to rebel once they get a little bit of freedom. I had a different friend, not the first one I mentioned, but a different one whose dad was chief of police in our hometown, and he was very authoritarian at home. Once she got to 18, and they sent her away to go to college, and that first semester of college was her lost semester for sure. She failed out. She was busy drinking and running around and doing whatever she felt like doing because she suddenly had freedom and nobody could make her do what she was supposed to do anymore, right? Sometimes you see compulsivity where the person feels like they have to do stuff that they've been deprived of all this time. Sometimes there are identity issues because when they were younger and they were complying, they were labeled a good girl or good boy by the people who were happy that they were complying. And then now they're not doing those behaviors anymore and they're like, am I a bad girl or boy now that I'm not doing what my parents used to reward me for? do I not want to do that behavior because I was just always forbidden from doing it, or do I not want to do the behavior because I personally think it's wrong? I'm not sure, right? So you go through like these identity issues trying to figure it out in ways that you wouldn't see in other styles. With permissive parenting, you have kids who oftentimes will act out, trying to get an adult to take control. It's hard to be a young, like a child or young adolescent who's making all your own decisions. It's really a lot of burden on a child. And so a lot of times I do these basically cries for help to try and get somebody to take note of the fact that they are just running, I don't know what to do, somebody take control of this. As they get older, they're more likely to engage in substance abuse, to be unemployed, to be disorganized, have difficulty trying to figure out what steps they need to take to get where they want to go in life and stuff like that. Authoritative parents, it's called just right for a reason, because one of the things about authoritative parenting is that you teach the child to internalize the rules and to develop self-discipline. They learn why there are rules or why some behaviors are advantageous and others are disadvantageous. And they start to decide early on which rules they value and which ones they don't, and which things they think make sense and which ones they want to throw out. Children who were authoritatively parented are more likely to show follow-through on their goal-oriented behaviors. They tend to do a better job of planning out their life in like 5-year and 10-year increments, things like that. Now, it's not perfect. I mean, we're still talking about, adolescents and young adults, and it's difficult to figure out where we're going in life, right? But you have a better chance if your parents have, in small increments throughout your lifetime, taught you how to make decisions for yourself and decide what's right and wrong and stuff like that, than if you weren't guided and you were left to your own devices in a permissive strategy, or if you were always just forced to do what the parents thought were right and you weren't given the freedom to decide for yourself or see the consequences of your behavior and stuff like that. So this is why they call authoritative just right. It tends to have the better outcomes, but it's not a guarantee. It is none of these are guarantees. We always got to keep in mind that the child comes into the situation with certain personality characteristics and things like that. Like my brother, we'll talk about him later when we get to the chapter on psychological disorders, but he was not the kind of kid who could be authoritatively raised. He needed authoritarian parenting because he was really good at following rules. He was not very good at reasoning and deciding right from wrong on his own. And that persisted into his 20s. So my parents, luckily, were pretty flexible, and so they were able to authoritarianly parent him with a backup of authoritative. With me, they saw that I was a pretty compliant kid and stuff like that, and so they were able to authoritatively parent me with a backup of a little lowering the boom authoritarian tendencies on my mom's part, and on my dad's part, he was pretty permissive. So if I ever wanted a rule change or something, I always do to go reason it out with Dad, because he would see my point of view more easily than my mom would, who would just say, because we said no. And it's like, dang it, I should ask Dad. Now that I asked Mom, I can't go ask Dad. Dang it. So that I'll finish up the conversation with that little example of, it's fine that the parents don't match, but you know what? The parents want to maybe get on the same page with topics. Like when I approached my father with a proposal to change the age at which I could date, my parents had arbitrarily decided on 16, and I was not yet 15 and a half, and I wanted to go out on a date. So I approached my dad with this proposal, and knowing that he was the more permissive of the two of them. But he, being the more permissive one, knew dang well better not just make a decision on his own, right? So he said, well, I will go discuss this with your mother, and we will decide. And between the two of them, they came to the conclusion I could go out on a date, but I had a very strict curfew, and I had a one strike and I was out rule. If you mess up at all, you're not dating anymore. And so the first guy that I made all the arguments for and why I wanted to go out with him, we went out like 3 times, and then we weren't interested anymore. But now the floodgates are open and I can date, right? So I go out with one of my brother's friends who keeps me out till like 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was it. No more dating for like 6 months after that, because, one strike and you're out, baby. I blew it. So, parents need to get onto the same page, confer with each other, and at least present a united front, and that's the important thing. All right, let's go ahead and stop here, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development.